We were doing full cost caps, and then so like in terms of like how we're adjusting bids, probably 2 times a week, sometimes three, because we do have like that weekend bump, and so I'll on a Monday come in and lower all of our cost caps to kind of mitigate against any excess during the week. And then on like Thursday or Friday, I'll bump them back up. And if we're seeing success, I'll bump them again on Saturday. Sunday's our biggest day, generally speaking. And then kind of rotate and rinse and repeat. But the biggest caveat that I'll give to that is that you've got to have scale. Like you have to have volume in the account for cost caps to run. And so we ran into the beginning of this month. We did some tightening on some of our audiences, and it tanked everything. We had a like kind of a glitch in our CAPI integration that's flooded with like duplicate conversions, and so we cut that spigot off, and then we limited our audience, and then it just tanked spend because Facebook basically had a huge influx in conversions and increased spend, and then we cut the spigot off, and so we're now basically rebuilding everything. And so, but I had a pretty segmented cost cap structure that I was kind of doing what I was just describing, and right now I've got everything back down to 2 campaigns with 2 ad sets with all of our ads in either in a broad or a lookalike audience. Like, so we've had to consolidate down, and just for reference, like when I say scale, like we were spending 10 to 15K a day, and then we dropped to about 2 to 5K a day. And at that level, like cost caps just weren't working. And so like you just didn't have the volume for it to like feed itself. And then it was like a, vicious cycle of like every day it was getting less data and spending less. That's kind of how we are still kind of looking at it from like when we make those kinds of changes. But yeah, the big caveat being you've got to have the volume to be able to drive the data into those so that it'll actually work.
I can second that, Todd. I think I've tried the cost cap route for a couple, I'd say, smaller spending accounts, and it just nothing sticks. Nothing stays consistent enough. So the volume is super important. Curious how you're structuring the cost caps. The biggest issue I've had, even on bigger spending accounts, is the fluctuation of like one day it'll spend, the next day it'll barely spend. And I'm sure many people have that issue. So what I've done, I've made like a CBO and then put multiple cost caps in there to see what does spend and try to find a happy medium. But curious how you've kind of gone about that issue.
Yeah, and I'm team. If it's not spending, it's doing its job. Generally speaking, but to really understand that, you've got to have a tight control on. Really have to understand like what are the ads in the ad set, where are they going. So when we were running hardcore cost caps, we had everything segmented by landing page. So I'd have a landing page campaign, and it had all of the ads in that campaign were going into that landing page. So I had a pretty good idea of what the conversion rate on that page was, what the volume we were sending into that page, and I could tell like, no, this ad's working, this ad's not. And so it's definitely a lot more work, and I will freely admit it's probably not, like, the juice is probably not worth the squeeze in every situation, because it does take like a lot of like getting it to the point where I can feel confident about, like, if it's not spending, then it's because the ad's not working or the audience just isn't there. But it took us 3 months to get there, and it all like broke in a week. And so now we're rebuilding it, and I'm in that moment of like, is this worth doing again? Or should I, like I've definitely thrown a lowest cost campaign up just to get some volume back in, and it's worth it to us because we do have such tight CAC to LTV targets, and like we aren't an agency, we run a business. And not that an agency isn't a business. That sounded really pejorative. I didn't mean that. I have to make money with every dollar that we spend, and I don't have like just a budget that we get to play around with in between. And we can't afford to have unlimited upside with unlimited downside. Like, we have to have a backstop on the downside, and so it's worth it for us. But I could freely admit that it may not be worth the squeeze. for every account and every media buying situation.